All right, we're now officially less than a month away from Apple revealing what could be the most significant iPhone update in over 10 years. So today, I want to guide you through the newest leaks and reports regarding iOS 19. Because over the past few weeks, there's been a surge of fresh intel. And honestly, it's given us the clearest insight yet into what Apple has been developing. And let me tell you, it's substantial. First up, the interface overhaul this year. It's absolutely happening. We've now heard this from various reliable sources, and they're all saying the same thing. Not only is the redesign coming to the iPhone, but it's also landing on the iPad and the Mac simultaneously. And once again, Apple's core influence appears to be visionOS, the software behind the £3,499 Apple Vision Pro headset. Now, until recently, we had only glimpsed an early alpha version of iOS 19. And frankly, it didn't show much. It certainly didn't appear to be the sweeping revamp we were expecting. But lately, there was a far more substantial leak unveiling fresh elements of iOS 19, including overhauled icons and other UI modifications that Apple's implementing. But iOS 19 honestly feels like a breath of fresh air. Let's begin with the lock screen. The toggles at the bottom now have this gorgeous gloss to them. They appear to float above the content below. And reportedly, they even respond in real time to your device's movement via the gyroscope. I genuinely believe Apple is doubling down on that immersive, layered aesthetic throughout the whole OS. Even the settings menu, its toggles now look far more refined. They're slimmer, sleeker, and blend into the layout in a way that saves far more space. But the most striking visual shift has to be the home screen icons. For years, people have wondered, will Apple ever move away from the iconic rounded rectangle icons to something completely new? They're not perfect circles, but they're no longer just rounded rectangles either. I'm calling them squirrel icons at the moment because, honestly, that's the closest description I can think of. Personally, I really like their appearance. The instant I saw them, they just gave off that quintessential Apple vibe, if you get what I mean. But look, this change will definitely be divisive. The iPhone's icon design has basically remained unchanged throughout iOS's history, and now it's receiving a bold makeover. That's bound to spark plenty of debate. And to clarify, Apple isn't just giving the icons a facelift or adjusting a few apps. This is a complete system-wide revamp. We've already seen new examples illustrating how these updates are being applied. One of the best so far is the refreshed camera app. It now features a larger viewfinder, and Apple has shifted many of the camera controls into a drawer at the bottom of the screen. It's a subtle change, but it looks so much cleaner than the current camera interface. And fingers crossed Apple also gives the Photos app a long overdue redesign, because let's be honest, it's been a mess since day one. The Photos app is probably one of the most consistently criticized features of iOS. Everywhere I turn, users are complaining about it, and I agree, it's subpar. While there haven't been any concrete leaks suggesting it's getting revamped in iOS 19, I've got a strong hunch it's on the cards. That's all I'll say for now. Now, out of all the updates we've seen in iOS 19 so far, there's one user experience upgrade I'm genuinely most excited about, and that's the redesigned tab bar. Traditionally, the tab bar has always been anchored to the bottom edge of the screen. But in iOS 19, it's set to float slightly above your content. This small adjustment actually provides Apple with greater flexibility. For instance, they can now reposition the Search tab to the bottom, which is a major improvement, especially on larger iPhone models. Right now, on big iPhones, trying to reach the search icon at the top of the display with one hand is nearly impossible. But with the revamped layout, all the key functions are more accessible and much easier to interact with. And based on what we've seen in the leaks, it already appears far more refined. I genuinely can't wait to try it out. There's a fairly questionable rumor circulating about multitasking in iOS 19. According to this leak, Apple may be planning to supercharge iPhones with USB-C ports. And if you happen to own something like a studio display, you could connect your iPhone via Thunderbolt and essentially turn it into a miniature desktop. You'd be able to attach a keyboard and mouse and run something like Stage Manager, a proper windowed experience on a larger screen. It would all be powered by the iPhone's chip. Now, Samsung has had a feature like this for years called Samsung DeX. You plug your phone into a monitor, and get a full desktop interface. So, technically speaking, it's feasible. But here's the issue. I just don't see Apple doing it. Why would they risk undercutting sales of the iPad or Mac? I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think Apple is far too invested in its hardware ecosystem to fully commit to transforming the iPhone into a desktop alternative. It just doesn't strike me as a move they'd pursue. That said, the most discussed aspect of iOS 19 might be Apple's direction with AI, specifically Apple Intelligence. Let's be real, Apple's initial AI rollout hasn't gone smoothly. Many of the promised features, like a smarter Siri with contextual understanding, still haven't materialized. So, what's on the agenda this year? Well, it sounds like Apple's scaling things back. Their commitments will be more modest, and they'll reportedly lean more on third-party integrations. So yeah, iOS 19 is shaping up to be one of the most compelling updates in Apple's history. Between the new visuals, iPad upgrades, and AI integrations, this year's WWDC is going to be massive. It's happening Monday, June 9th. And if you haven't already,